You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host, Nick Schreck, and joining me tonight I have James from AuctionDraft. James, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, Nick? I'm doing
good,
well.
Man. Welcome to the show. Pumped to have you here. Guys, just to give you a little heads up, I had a sneak peek at what AuctionDraft has got going on. They've got some exciting things, and in my opinion, they're going to change the AuctionDraft game here as we head into late 2017 and then the 2018 season, where those of you that are playing in AuctionDrafts and those of you that are even thinking about diving in, you're going to become addicts really quickly. But I'll let James tell you a little bit about AuctionDraft. And James, what are you guys doing here that is going to change the game? Because what I saw is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's the vision I had running my own AuctionDraft and solving the problem of getting a bunch of guys together in the same room, whether it's at Buffalo Wild Wings or in your basement or wherever you're going to have your draft, and having everything automated for you. Because what I had to do is I had to get a crew. I found out I couldn't run the board and be the auctioneer and then also draft for my own team. I did that the first year, and I didn't do very well.
I was going to say, you probably get lost, right? You probably get lost in the draft because of everything that's going on.
Oh, yeah, and then everyone writes down and does everything on pieces of paper. They manage their own budget, right? And inevitably, someone always overdrafts their budget. They spend $1 more than they have, and usually it's me. And then like 5 rounds later, I start adding it up, and I realize I don't have enough money to fill out the rest of my roster, and I got to put the player up, and then everyone throws stuff at me.
I'll tell you what, that sounds like the problem a lot of people have nowadays. They're like, oh, I'm going to go buy that, and you're like, oh wow, I added my math up wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So solving some of those problems was everyone making sure no one overspent. As a commissioner, it was really as a commissioner to have something to run the whole thing for me that was seamless and easy and fun and engaging. I mean, really it's all about the live auction experience. But then I also had, a buddy in Tulsa, Oklahoma that couldn't always make it up to do the draft. And if he wanted to participate, even though we were all meeting in a room, he couldn't do it. So, this web application that's an internet solution designed for a live draft experience where you can throw up an auctioneer up on a big screen TV, everyone pulls out their phones and bids. I could still have my buddy participate in the draft too. So that was kind of the vision, and started to build it, and now we're bringing it to life. And really it's about the engaging draft experience, draft day, which is the best day of fantasy football. Absolutely. And then the next thing was we came up with a concept of 5-week fantasy seasons, because that's the best day. Why not do it a couple more times during the season? And then also people stay engaged in the league, where after about 5 or 6 seasons, teams that aren't doing well stop caring or stop setting their lineups, and that's frustrating as a commissioner too. So those were 2 problems we tried to solve. And then probably the third problem is kind of a side feature or benefit of our site is to have a clean UI that doesn't have a ton of ads, because that got really old going to a lot of the main sites out there. Just all of the ad space and their media companies. That was another frustrating thing, is they're so focused on media. And yeah, I'm interested on a news story about my player, but that wasn't the main focus of playing fantasy football. I wanted to play the game. I didn't want to have tons and tons and tons of content. So that was probably a secondary benefit of what we were trying to do, is to have something that was clean and more about the pure fantasy football experience.
And I love it. I'll tell you what, James, we talked about it before we came on the air, but, from when we had our first call back in 2016, we were just we were shooting the shit, talking fantasy football a little bit. Right. And, you get excited about draft day and you hear it all there. And, to now be here a year later and see where you guys have come from, kind of the idea phase to actually seeing it in action is cool. And I mean, guys, you're not going to see this yet, but it's flawless. I mean, I'm no auction draft guy, by any stretch of the imagination, but I've played on, we'll call it the big networks. I won't name anybody, but you look at some of the reviews that we've done here, and the sites are a mess, overloaded with things. And James is 100% right here, where they're clean. It's easy to move your way through it. And they've got some really cool features going on. And again, I was clicking buttons and I was placing my bids, and I realized after I placed a few bids that I'd probably run out of money on my own fault, not because of an inaccurate count. I just got greedy and overpaid for Aaron Rodgers and LaShawn McCoy. But that's okay. I'll learn to manage my money a little bit better. But I love it. I love it. And anything fantasy football, this is the best time of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, I mean, and we were talking about this earlier about the direction that we're going in, trying to build quality into the user experience. My day job, I build software too. And so quality and user experience are always really big for me. And what we're doing this season is we're targeting October for our beta launch, and people that want to get in and try it out and give us feedback to make a system better. That's what we're doing this season, and really just trying to build as much quality and the best user experience possible. And then when we launch it next season, in the 2018 season, it'll have that quality there that people are looking for. And then the other side, another thing I didn't really probably mention is we are definitely looking at continued feedback. What are the features that you want? You don't always get that with a lot of the bigger sites out there. They're not really asking, hey, what do you really want to see in the app? What would be really cool?
Yep.
And we are very attentive listeners to our user base. So, our focus also is to grow with our users and with the leagues and what they want. What do the fantasy football players and commissioners want? Yeah. And so that's something we're definitely going to be using with our beta. I mean, we're building what we think is really good. We've tried to get some feedback already, but we're going to launch the beta version here October, November. Have people play a 5-week fantasy season, see what that feels like, and then get that feedback. Who knows? There might be something. We get enough people saying the same thing, like you have to have this. We're probably going to put it in before the 2018 season.
Which is awesome. And for those of you Let's Talk Fantasy Football listeners out there, I know you guys will respond. You'll sign up for the beta for those of you in the auction drafts. But, for those of you that love, reviewing things, doing Yelps, things like that, and giving feedback, this is your shot to do it with fantasy football, because we know if you follow along and listen now that you guys are clearly passionate about it and you're not just stopping by for a quick article. So we're excited to get you guys a shot here at Auction Draft when they do launch the beta. And, just to kind of build on your point there, James, with, these other companies that don't take that feedback into consideration, we've talked about this. It's about the long-term relationship with everybody. For us, it's the listeners and people that hit the site. For you, it's about, Auction Draft and the app and the experience, because long-term, you want people to play there for years to come. Yeah. It's not a one and done. Yeah. And, we've done a bunch of reviews on the mobile apps from the big guys and some other people, and, you look back and we keep kind of nesting them underneath so you can see how the app has changed from 2014 to 2015 to now. And really, the stuff that I complained about in 2014, I'm starting to see now in 2017. So it's taking them, 3 years. And, the beauty of it is that you and I can pivot very quickly because we truly care about the people that, are paying attention to us, right, versus the big guys who are like, well, we're established and we have the market. And right, that's the opportunity for us to actually make the ultimate fantasy experience for everybody out there. So this is awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited to partner with you on it, on anything that we can do together. I think Let's Talk Fantasy is just a great site and a podcast. I think there's a lot of great content and quality. Definitely see the way that you care about the people that come to you for your service too.
Thanks, James. I appreciate it. Again, for us, it's just trying to help everybody find the best out there, and that's why we're here. We want to find it, and as far as auction drafting is concerned, right now, this is it. So I don't think there is something on the market that we'd put our name behind right now. So we're excited to actually do that once the beta launches come October and November.
Awesome.
So, James, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and James and I, we're going to shift off auction draft, and we're going to talk a little fantasy football. We have a Denver Broncos homer here. I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, so we're talking a bunch of AFC West, but we'll be back with you guys in just a second.
This year, dominate your friends with free play-by-play fantasy football from Vupiq. Vupiq is the first play-to-play fantasy football game where you crush your friends from the comfort of your own couch. For the first time in fantasy football, you must think like the players and coaches on the field as you predict the outcome of every play. Visit Vupiq.com, VUPIQ.com, and sign up now for an invitation to beta test.
All right, guys, we are back. I am still here with James from AuctionDraft, and I hope you guys enjoy what we learned about AuctionDraft here today. We're going to get you into that beta. We know you guys are going to respond, so we're pumped up for that. But let's shift gears here, James. Let's talk Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs. Let's talk some fantasy football because we're in the 2-week crunch here. The 2 big weekends where everybody's, for the most part, drafting. So, tell us a little bit about the Broncos because I'll tell you what, I am very biased. So if it's not Chiefs related, everybody else stinks as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
So what do you see here with the Broncos, fantasy-wise? Is there anything people should be aware of or anybody specifically you want to talk about?
Yeah, we can talk. I actually even went to training camp when they were having that. Got to see a little bit of that before Simeon finally got designated as the starter. Finally. And actually, a little side story about that. As a fan, I was super excited when Denver went and drafted Paxton Lynch a year ago. I wanted him. I was like, yes, we have our next franchise quarterback. And I was really excited when they drafted him. And he has not progressed well. He just doesn't get the mental aspect of the game at all. And so when I went out to training camp, we're watching the quarterbacks. And I noticed Paxton out there, and he threw pick sixes. He threw 3 pick sixes while I was there. I was only there for like an hour, and I couldn't believe it. Like even a guy that's supposedly a gunslinger, I watched him roll out to the right, and there's a receiver headed towards the sideline with a DB following him, and he just kind of soft tosses it. And I'm like, what are you doing? And it just gets picked right off, of course. Like the DB was just baiting him. And I couldn't believe that. And so now we fast forward to now. And I liked Simeon last year.
Yep.
And he was behind a really poor offensive line and had an incredibly archaic game plan and offensive staff behind him for the game calling. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. As much as I love Gary Kubiak as a longtime Bronco, I mean, the guy just is ridiculously stubborn. He should not be calling plays in the NFL, shouldn't be running offenses. He's back as a scout now, and I think that's a good place for him. But yeah, I think Simeon, I'm incredibly impressed with Simeon. People say he doesn't throw long, and a lot of it was how he was coached, in my opinion. I think he was told, don't make mistakes, you don't go long, you do the check down, and that's what he did. And I think you're going to really see a very different offense this year. I think they're actually going to be pretty good. Bowles, their left tackle, they picked up as their number 1 draft pick this year. It looks really, really good. Leary, who they pulled up from the Cowboys, is looking good. So the big problem was their protection. I mean, Simeon wasn't protected at all. I mean, no one was going to succeed just getting demolished like that on a regular basis. And that led to the other problem, which was the running game. So you had C.J. Anderson. I had him on my team last year in one of my leagues.
Terrible.
Just destroyed my whole chances of anything when he got hurt. And C.J. looks good again this year. The only thing about C.J. is I just don't trust him. The guy just is inevitably going to get hurt, it seems. But I'll tell you, the big sleeper is Henderson. I don't know if you've been paying any attention to Henderson.
A little bit.
That guy is like a little Barry Sanders reincarnate. I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
Watching him in the preseason has been impressive. He's already gotten promoted up. I would not, if you're talking about like handcuffs, if you draft C.J. Henderson, draft Henderson as well, D'Angelo Henderson. Anderson looked good, but the guy just doesn't stay healthy. So Henderson to me is like a huge sleeper in like 5 or 6 weeks in when Anderson eventually breaks something. And
I can get
so that's
my
my inside information. My Broncos insider information is Henderson. I think Simeon will be maybe top 12 quarterback. And you'll see Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders kind of come. They'll actually have decent stats this year. I don't know if they'll be top guys. What?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens with Demaryius Thomas there. Like you said, because he statistically was down, but he still, for fantasy wise, he did perform decent last year. Most people considered it a bad year, but he still
was.
Yes, but he still gave you whatever. I think it was, he ended up like a low wide receiver 2, depending on what league he played scoring. So, seeing him with Simeon and, like you're saying, all the positives, I think you can probably get him a little cheaper than what he probably is worth. I think he maybe outperforms his ADP a little bit this year.
Yeah, I think almost all the Broncos offensive players will outperform their ADP. Although I've seen Mike Anderson kind of start to climb up a little bit since he had a good outing, but I think at all of them you'll get good value if you get a primary Bronco offensive player.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely some value to be found there. But do you play in other leagues? Are you strictly auction draft? Do you play in PPR, standard, the whole?
So you said PPR. So PPR is scoring, right?
Yeah.
I've played in. I'm actually doing a snake draft tomorrow night.
Okay.
With independent defensive players. Okay. And it is a PPR scoring system. I'll tell you what. So in AuctionDraft, I actually created my own version of a standardized scoring system I call AuctionDraft Pro, and it's production. So quarterbacks actually matter in that scoring system. They get points for completions. They get bonuses at 20 completions, and they get 6 points for touchdowns. And then running backs get points for rushing attempts, and then wide receivers, I give them 1 point for every 5 yards, so they make their money all off of yards. So it's a little bit different, but it's high scoring and it's fun. I kind of get tired of classic and PPR, to be honest with you, because I'm just like, it feels a little more like almost touchdown only leagues, especially after you play in a scoring system where every completion is a point and every rushing attempt is a point.
Yes.
And everyone has their preferences. I prefer the higher scoring systems. It's not ridiculous, because I've seen some ridiculous ones, but where the quarterback is your stud, like the NFL actually is, as opposed to the running back is a stud, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that, well, you got to get running back, so everyone drafts 12 running backs in a row. Because if you don't, then you won't get any running back, so you're forced into drafting these running in a running back. Because of the way the scoring is so favored towards running backs. So I like the higher production scoring, but I am participating in a league it's basically a PPR league, and it's a snake draft. We're doing it all online. It's not in person, which is I always love in person.
Can't beat it.
You can't beat it. It's really the best experience. Except when you have a draft that goes for 6 hours, that's the only one.
Oh yeah, that's when they drag on. I've been in a few, not quite 6 hours long, but 6 hours is a little lengthy.
That was my record that I was in, but doing a snake draft this Friday, love it. Love fantasy football. I've always enjoyed it. Although it's funny, when you start to build like an app, everybody when they play it, they say, "Oh, I wish we had this feature," or "Oh, I wish it didn't do this." So you have all those ideas, right?
Yep.
But you're still playing fantasy football. You're in 7 leagues or whatever you're in, and then you come over and on the development side, and you're like, okay, now we're going to build something. So I've been so focused on building, especially over the last year. Last year I really wasn't very into fantasy football. Now I'm kind of coming back now that the app is going through, and I'm able to get a little bit more into it. And actually I'm running drafts for testing. For my own app, so I have to kind of get into the draft anyway. Getting back into it. I definitely have some players that you would mention. Maybe talk about a little bit of players. Maybe I like and I don't like.
Hit me.
Want to get to that piece of the conversation.
Let's do it. Give me a couple names. Like, don't like, or people you see are being overdrafted.
So I'll tell you. I really don't like some of the top quarterbacks that are out there. I don't like Tom Brady being ranked number 2. I think he just got ranked so high because he did so well in the Super Bowl. It's like this media hype thing. I mean, Tom Brady hasn't exactly been the stud of the quarterback stat class every single year in, year out. He's a consistent performer. He has big games, but I kind of see that trailing off. I know he's got Cook, and I'm actually high on Cook because of that. Mm-hmm. But I gotta tell you, Brady hitting 40, I see him at like 7 or 8, not number 2.
I mean,
go ahead.
So I'm just saying, let's finish his top 10. But yeah, if you pay a top 2 price and he comes out of top 10, I mean, for me, I think I'm scared of being wrong on Brady on saying like this is the year he falls off because. I mean, and I'm not the only one, but I've done it on, Frank Gore year after year. I'm like, this is it. On the podcast, we call him Frank Floor now because no matter how many times he's going to drop off, he's always got his floor. He always does it. And every year I'm like, this is it. He's done. And he continues to defy any logic that I can put into Frank Gore. So for me, and that's, I guess, our thing here is we're not afraid to admit our bias. My bias here keeps me on being wrong on Brady by pushing people away. So I still think he'll be okay. He probably finishes top 4 for me, but I get it.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it's a double-edged sword with Brady. It really is. I think he's probably one of the bigger boomer busts going into the draft this year because, I mean, they went all in on offense, it looks like, in the offseason. So, I mean, he could be huge. I mean, he could have another 2007 season. And
absolutely,
it's really tough. I just feel like 40's going to catch up with him this year. It's a feeling. It's totally a gut feeling.
I got you, man. Trust me. We work on biases and guts all the time here. Stats go out the window way too often, but it's who we are. But for anybody that is drafting with James on Friday who thought he might have liked Tom Brady, let him slide down the board to you because he's not going to snipe him.
That's right. I'll pass on him.
Just so you guys know, he'll be on the board there for you guys. Who else you got there, James?
I think Kirk Cousins is kind of my big riser as a quarterback, and Kurt and Winston. Those are my 2 quarterbacks that I think will be top 5 this year, both of them. Quarterbacks are always so hard to predict. I've got a list here that has pre-rankings on it. It has Tom Brady at 2, has Cam Newton at 3. And I think both those guys will slip out of the top 5, and I think you could see Kurt and Winston. I actually think the Bucs, even though they're not known for it, they just haven't really been known for it. They might be a top 3 offense this year.
Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson. We'll see what happens to Dougie Fresh when he comes off the suspension there. But the offense they should be good. They should be trending the right way.
Yeah, Winston was going in the right direction, and this is his 3rd year, and he seems like he's very committed.
Yes.
That's the other thing. You talk about quarterback busts, and I was talking about Paxton Lynch, where the guy just doesn't get the mental aspect of the game. I think quarterback in the NFL maybe has more to do with the mental side, the preparation, the hard work, knowing what a defense is going to do before they do it, than it necessarily has to do with being very super athletically gifted. And James Winston is actually he's both. He's very athletically gifted, and I think he's really putting in that time in his 3rd year. Cousins really did well last year, and the reason why I call it Cousins is because one of my big picks this year for wide receiver is Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor was, if you picked him up in Cleveland last year, he was a super consistent, nice number 2 wide receiver in Cleveland. And I can't believe they didn't re-sign him. I thought that was such a mistake. Just ridiculous.
Well, you could say that about Cleveland doing a lot of things. You could shake your head at a lot of things that go on.
Oh, my goodness. If they would have kept him, and then they could have kept him with Kaiser now, who they named as the starter, I mean, that could actually really be the beginning of something. I think Terrell Pryor is actually a true number 1 receiver, though. I think he isn't the fastest guy in the world, but he does have a receiver build, but he also puts in that work. He's got that work ethic, and he runs. Go ahead.
He's gonna get his shot here with Kirk Cousins, and I agree. Yeah. I mean, Kirk is one of those guys where when I draft late. I mean, the league that we do here at the site, we are notorious. We ignore quarterback most of the time until it gets to like round 8, 9, 10, and that's kind of where they all go. So a lot of mocks I've paired, I'll grab Kirk and then I'll pair him with somebody else with some upside. So if I have to play matchups or whatever, but I agree, Kirk's a big name for people to kind of put that target on.
Yeah, he is. So I think they're going to match well together. I mean, these are always predictions, right? You can just say what everyone else is saying, but so those are my bold predictions. And then the running back position is a complete mess this year. It's ridiculous. You've got, it looks like Le'Veon Bell's going to be there at the start.
Yep.
I think you have David Johnson, you have Le'Veon Bell, and then everyone else is really scary.
I think McCoy's the only other one that I throw in the mix where I'm okay with McCoy.
Yeah, I think he's the last to beat there. I feel safe with McCoy.
After that, it's preference.
Yeah, I think Johnson and Bell are going to be like, they will carry your team. McCoy will be very good and consistent. I don't know if McCoy will get to the number 1 status this year. I don't know if he can jump those two guys, but yeah, I agree. Your top three running backs are your safe bets. Those are the ones you want to go for, and then everything else is really scary. You have all these rookies that are getting ranked really high, and it's like Leonard Fournette. I was in love with Leonard Fournette coming out of the draft, but the guy is behind a horrible offensive line, and he's probably got Chad Henne being his quarterback because Blake Bortles is failing.
Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook is in the same situation.
He's in a bad spot. His price is off the board. You look at Joe Mixon, who, whatever, he's not listed as a starter, but is he going to be the starter? But people are drafting him like the starter. We don't really, it's Christian McCaffrey looks really good. The prices for all these guys, and I think some of it ties back to the recency bias of Ezekiel Elliott, where people last year were like, I don't know, do you believe, do you not? And then he was just like, the rookie was God. So is one of these guys that one? I wouldn't bet the house on it. I think most of their prices are way too high for me. So I probably won't own any of them. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I won't invest.
Yeah, and I'm seeing them all ranked in like the top 10. Christian Fournette and Cook, and I'm not saying they won't do well, but I think there's like if you're in a draft, you're in the first round, and Bell, Johnson, and McCoy's gone. I wouldn't go after a running back after that. I think the wide receiver position is way more consistent and level, it seems, this year than the running back position, or a solid quarterback or Gronk, right?
Yeah. The wide receiver position is so deep, and we've hit it a few times on the podcast too, where we talk about it's kind of like that running back like cliff, because all right, you can again we say those top 3 are our guys, but for the most part in the industry, you'll say like Jay Ajayi at like 15 or Todd Gurley at 18 is kind of like the floor, and then it just completely drops out. You look at McCaffrey, Fournette, Cook, Lamar Miller, Marshawn Lynch, Joe Mixon, Carlos Hyde, Danny Woodhead, and now you're down in round 5 in a 12-team league with Spencer Ware, Bilal Powell. So your options are kind of like scary shitty up top, or like scary shitty as you move down, because next thing you know, you're with Doug Martin, who's got a suspension. You're drafting Mark Ingram, who the Saints clearly hate. What are the Patriots going to do at running back? LeGarrette Blount is, not doing well in Philly. It is the ultimate shit show. So it really is. It's kind of like,
I don't like the running back position this year.
Pick your poison. It's kind of like, do you want to take the stab at Jay Ajayi not being the 1-year wonder in Jordan Howard, or roll the dice as you go down? That's really the strategy. I think, we tell people mock draft as much as you can, because it's so impossible to predict, particularly with the uncertainty that we're looking at here, really from rounds 2 to really the bottom on running back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then the tight end position is boring. It's the same list for the last 3 years, isn't it?
Yep. Again, we advise people for the most part, on the site, we don't believe typically in paying up for Gronk, Kels, or anybody else, because typically what you're giving up to get him isn't, in our eyes, isn't worth it. Again, different views. And then we pretty much tell people, we call it tight end roulette. Spin the wheel, pick someone off the wire. If you want to grab a guy late, fine. But for the most part, you're not hitting a home run. But it's not sexy. There's nothing sexy about, here's Zach Ertz. Sure, he could be upside, but you're going to spend a 9th round pick on him. If he works, great.
Yeah.
But you didn't spend a 4th round pick on him, and then he busts. So I agree. Tight end is whatever.
Yeah, the only tight end I think is like good values. Possibly Bennett in Green Bay. He might pan out. But like, Kyle Rudolph is always Kyle Rudolph, yay, and then he's great for like a game. Same thing with Delaney Walker. These guys. Jordan Reed's awesome until he gets hurt again.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If he stays healthy, he's a god. But you can't. It's always coming. Healthy. It's always coming. When the reports came out, I think everyone, when he hurt his foot or whatever, this offseason, I think everyone grabbed their phones and just collectively sighed. Everyone's like, oh, there it is, Jordan Reed again. He's hurt. Yeah. What a surprise. Yeah. So, James, the last guy I want to talk about with you here, and it's a big name, Ezekiel Elliott. Where would you be comfortable taking Ezekiel Elliott? Because this is kind of the, right now he's suspended 6 games. We don't know what's going to happen, but really people going into this weekend and next weekend probably aren't going to have clarity come draft day. So right now, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, his average draft position in a 12-team league is the 5th pick in the 2nd round, which to me is still crazy because in the 2nd round you want to start him. So if he misses 6 games, like half your season's gone.
Yeah, I guess it depends on if you believe the 6 games will stick.
Okay.
We're only 2 weeks out, so right now I think it's scary, but my belief is it'll get reduced to 3. Okay. And if that's the case, then he's totally worth it. He's a steal in the 2nd round. And even if I was looking at the middle to the end of the 1st round, I'd probably still look to take him. And it's not just. I think Dak is actually going to drop off a little bit from his awesome season he had last year, his Cinderella season. I think he'll drop off a little bit, but I think that offensive line is that offensive line, and you can put just about anybody behind that offensive line, and they're going to be a star running back. So I think a lot of it has to do with the talent in front of him. And he's a very talented player, but as soon as he comes off the suspension, he will go back to being who he was. Because the system is what it is, and he's got that offensive line that's just going to blow holes open and grade the road for him. So I think he's good value right now. As much as he seems to be having issues and suspensions. I drafted Le'Veon Bell last year. I didn't even blink at it. And it panned out really well. He's back at the top, and it's easy to look short side and say, well, my first couple of games. But as fantasy seasons go on, players start dropping like flies. People start getting injured, and those players that can last you long throughout the season. That's how you win a fantasy season. It's not in weeks 1 and 2. There's a lot of fantasy football Hall of Famers in weeks 1 and 2, and then by the end of the season, you're just like, that guy did nothing for me. So I'm okay with the flip side of a guy's. I'll survive for the first 3 weeks, and I'll make sure I draft some good depth at the scary running back position, and or try and overcompensate with some other positions, and then take Zeke as my stud at the running back. If you can get him in the 2nd round, if I can draft Aaron Rodgers and I can get Zeke in the 2nd round, I'd probably take that.
Fair enough. Again, I guess I'm just more risk adverse, but I get the argument. I totally feel it, and that's probably why I struggle when I skip on some more risky guys. But
I'm not in a big money league, so
okay.
If you're in a big money league, then I can see that a little bit more. So definitely, there's a lot of risk there. There is, but if we're talking season for a full season, I feel comfortable with Zeke definitely in the 2nd round.
All right, fair enough. Well, James, I appreciate you taking the time for jumping on. We talked some fantasy football, we talked some auction draft, and we're excited for the beta to get here and get some people rocking and rolling. And we'll have you back on the show as the season kind of kicks off, and we'll keep talking fantasy football.
Awesome.
James, thanks for being here.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.